from anatomy too, and you know, you kind of write it like a paper that you would. So this is the background information, but you see how everything has a title to it. So the title, and you know, I took the person's name off, their lab partners in parentheses, and then because it was a quote, what does she do? Citation. Kind of gave a little bit of a background. I loved it because I was learning too some stuff, some history behind it, you know, and you can do that if you want. So then why is it a little bit relevant of why we're doing this experiment, right? Then the objective, nice and clear. The hypothesis. For you guys, I even made it even more simple. You don't even have to make the hypothesis this long because she explained the reasoning for her hypothesis, but you don't have to. It's if and then. So I want to see if I do this, then this would happen. The materials and procedures, you're literally taking that right off of your sheet that you have, and write it a step-by-step process would be better. You don't even have to make it this long. You don't. Then your results. So results are going to include some sort of table interpretation. So I have whatever some students do this way, a bar graph, a pie chart, something that I could look at visually and understand this is what we're measuring, these were the parameters that were measured, and then you kind of are going to have more than one thing because you're comparing, right? Same thing with your reaction time. You have more than one scenario. So you would make it nice and pretty. And yes, you get points for making it pretty because that's the ease of understanding what was happening. And then the discussion, you would detail what those results meant to you and did it correlate with your hypothesis or not, right? And then as you're doing that, you want to keep in mind the clinical significance section, which a lot of students miss points in because they want to write like we're in third grade. So this, I mean, I'll be very honest, one of the papers I got was because high blood pressure is bad for your heart. Really? You did all this and you're in college and that's the clinical significance? Absolutely not. So elaborate. What does it mean when their reaction time differs from what you thought it should be? What are some conditions that could cause that? And where in the brain would that be coming from? That's how you want to get, because that's how we're learning it, right? So you want to be a little more detailed in that. And then where'd you get that information from? So the clinical significance, you didn't just pull out your head, well, a little bit, but you know, you pulled out your notes, maybe from lecture, maybe from our textbook. Just make sure you cite all of that. And then, what is this?
Citation.
Yes. So sometimes I'll have one thing listed. Is that appropriate?
No.
Never. It is never appropriate to only use one source of information, and it happens to be like the textbook or something. So if you use the lab manual, you want to write that. You want to write your textbook, anything online, and make sure they're reputable sources. So what is not a reputable source? Wikipedia for sure. WebMD and Mayo Clinic, which I get a lot. So you want, and if you are questioning if it's a reputable source, that's what I'm here for. Text me and I'll be like, no. Or yes, this is fine. Okay? So the very last page, you didn't see the names, is their actual data that they got in class and how they answered those questions. So you know the discussion and the clinical significance actually was prompted for the student to include everything that they were doing at the end of the handout. So those things that you are doing at the end of the handout aren't there for fun, they're for you, well, a little bit. They're for you to include this information so you can apply it to the discussion and the clinical significance section, as well as, okay, this is what sensory and motor nerve roots look like. I don't know, I would like a little image of this, and maybe this is exactly where a problem would arise from. If the reaction time was off from your hypothesis, that's what you're doing. Okay, so this is prompting you to include stuff in that intro and discussion section and the clinical significance part. Is that better?
And
So
even-
she got an A. I wouldn't say 100, but she got an A. High A.
And even though we have like two sections of like the meter stick thing, we're just gonna have like one hypothesis?
Correct.
Okay.
You're gonna have one hypothesis, as in, you can elaborate to include both scenarios. Okay, but it's gonna be included as like one.
big thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because at the end of the experiment, what are you trying to measure? Reaction time. And then you have different scenarios which you include in your hypothesis, but it's just, if this happens, then this would happen. Better?
Mhm.